Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome back to How Love Bites. I'm here with, again, your co host and my co host, Steve. And Steve, I'm sure, will throw us a wave or something, let us know he's there and he's on camera.
Hello, everybody.
And today's show is going to be about love bombing.
Love bombing.
Yes, love bombing. So, for those of you that aren't familiar with love bombing and maybe what it is, Steve's going to be able to describe that a little bit better for us. And but I will say that how do you spot someone who is love bombing you? And is it the person you're seeing right now love bombing you, or are they just some kind of wonderful romantic person that you think you should be throwing yourself in the arms of and enjoying all the benefits and beautiful feelings that are created with this love bomber? So let's try and define what a love bomber is, right? I think that's where we're going to go. Absolutely. So a love bomber is sort of a love vampire in that they know that love is both the objective and the weapon. So they've got that in their mind already. So it's like a double-edged sword. So they're going to cut you on the way in and they're going to cut you on the way out. So maybe Steve can elaborate a little bit more for us on that.
Sure. Happy to, Dennis. And again, thanks for having me back on. So love bombing is a very hot topic out there in the dating world right now. And just in society in general, I think there's been a lot of talk about love bombing. And I think women are very savvy now. They talk with each other. They communicate. There's a lot available about different behaviors out there. The trends with online dating has really facilitated. It's a whole new and probably more efficient way to meet people and get matched up with people. But because of that, there's more data out there. There's more information available about what people are doing. And I think people are more likely to share that information. And so really, we have the advantage, I would say now, in the year of our Lord 2022, that a lot of this information is shared not only by experts, but by the ladies and the men that are out there in the dating world. So what I'd like to do is lay out first some of the, what are some signs of love bombing? What is love bombing? What are some signs of it? And then I think we're probably going to transition a little bit into the why people do it. And then, and I think you'll help me a little bit more with the why. I've got some thoughts on that. The main point of this, though, the show today, though, is to arm our audience with this information because it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign when love bombing happens, and we need to watch out for that. So without further ado, let's jump into the research Dennis and I have done on what is love bombing and what are some of the signs. So love bombing, in short, Dennis alluded to it. It's a vampire. It's a bite. It's something that sucks blood from you, which is a good analogy. But another analogy is it's an all-out offensive in the love and dating world. A love bombing is the act of bombing someone with excess of requests for time, excess very commonly in gifting, excess in behaviors that are not commensurate with where the relationship is. Love bombing is characterized, it's a blitzkrieg to use. So if we're going to stick to the war analogy, it's a blitzkrieg. It's fast. It's lightning fast. It happens right in the beginning of a relationship typically. The love bomber has, these are patterns of behavior that are learned behaviors over time. So that is, as you alluded to, it's both the tool and the objective. And they are looking to, they may not know this, but they are repeating these behaviors in their dating of, again, showering with gifts, smothering up front, expensive gifts, trying to overly impress. We all want to impress the person that we want to date, but if we're trying to overly impress, things might be done like, extreme examples is sometimes people will rent a high-end car to try to be flashy. They will try to arrange, make it look like happenstance or maybe not. They'll try to introduce people to VIPs. If they know someone who's even borderline famous early on in your dating, magically this person will want to introduce you to this celebrity or this quasi VIP because they're trying to impress you. They will say, I love you, the 3 words, right? They will say, I love you way early in the relationship. That is a sign. Does that mean that, of course, everyone who says I love you early on is a love bomber? Absolutely not. We're not saying that, but these are all different little pieces of data, behaviors that, and again, Dennis and I come from a law enforcement background. We're not psychologists. We're not psychiatrists. We're not social workers. What we do have is a lot of real world street experience on how to read people and how to read behaviors. And let's face it, as a cop, Dennis, I think you'll agree, you actually can get a little crusty. You can get a little jaded from being a police officer because you read people in an unadulterated way, and you can actually become a little cynical. But what the difference between Dennis and I and a psychiatrist or psychologist or social worker or counselor is, we don't use fancy words. We're not going to reference the physician's desk reference or the DSM-5. We are not going to get into the psychology of it. We call it as we see it. What are the behaviors that are out there in the dating world? And we're arming you with that unfiltered, unadulterated, how to read it information. And so that's what we're giving you in this show. This love bombing is a big deal. And so, again, reviewing excessive compliments, excessive gifts, expensive gifts, introducing to important people, VIPs, saying I love you way early in the relationship, things that are just too fast. You need to, in the dating world, you need to turn down your politeness and put on some armor and really be careful and ask yourself the question. Use your subconscious, use your inner you. Ask yourself, does this feel right? Why is this happening this fast? You know, I think I'm decent looking, but I know I'm not beautiful. Why is this person telling me I'm more beautiful than famous person X, Y, or Z? It's excessive. And you know it, and they know it. And if you both pretend like you don't know it, you're buying into a kind of a dangerous game, a dangerous behavior. It's inorganic. It's not natural. It's too fast. It's an offensive. It's a blitzkrieg. And love bombing is often used, in the context of talking about a personality disorder called narcissism, malignant narcissism. So men have their playbooks out there these days about women and dating. Women have theirs on men. One of the common themes that seems to be thrown out a lot these days is he is a narcissist, she is a narcissist, or whatever. Love bombing is one of the telltale signs. If you are experiencing some love bombing, that does not mean you're dealing with a malignant narcissist, but it is a red flag. We've talked a lot about red flags, haven't we, Dennis, on this show? And that is definitely a red flag. So, Dennis, I guess I want to pause here. I gave kind of a quick overview of what the telltale signs of are love bombing. You've got a lot of experience in the dating world, actually more than I do. Did I leave any out, or did any strike as wrong to you, or what are your thoughts about how I described in the research we've done on love bombing?
No, you certainly didn't leave anything out. But I think I could. I want to ask you another question, and
Sure.
that is: so, do you think, or do you find that love bombing may be dangerous, or is it something that can be managed, or is it something that could be? Can you bring it out? Can you call somebody out on it and just say,
okay, that's a great
you really
question.
don't know me that long,
Right. That's a great question. That's a great question. So, first, I think you asked 2 or 3 questions. The first one was something to the effect of, is it dangerous, or can it be dangerous?
Yeah.
I think it can be dangerous. I don't think it has to be dangerous. I think if it happens, though, it could be a sign. You don't want to convict someone of a crime they haven't yet committed, but it could be a sign that they are, again, potentially narcissistic, or just that they have this learned, maybe they're not narcissistic, but they have this learned behavior. They didn't just learn this with you, sister or brother. This is not a new thing. This is something that they have done for years. In fact, they've perfected it. They've honed it. They've figured out how to do it. So is it dangerous? I think on its surface, it is not dangerous. What's dangerous about it is it an indication of what that person really is doing? Why aren't they being more real? Why aren't they being more measured, step for step, tit for tat, one step at a time. Why? Is it insecurity? Is it narcissism? Is it just desperation for love? Well, all three of those things are not good things in the dating world. So I would say, I don't know, the word dangerous to me, I guess I'm thinking like a cop. Yes, it's dangerous from a relationship perspective and where things might go. I don't necessarily think it's dangerous in terms of, are they physically or emotionally dangerous? But you asked a really important, I think the second part of what you said, I think was along the lines of, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're a cop and you asked 3-part questions on me. I think the second part of what you asked me, instead of asking just an open-ended question as we're trained to do, the second part of what you asked me was, is this a behavior? Can you call somebody on it? Can you say, hey, slow down there, Tex. Whoa, cowboy. You're love bombing me. Or even if you don't use the word, like, whoa, partner, this is moving really fast. And I'm really, really glad you asked this question, because one of the hallmarks of a love bomber that I didn't lay out in my descriptors is that when you ask that question, if someone were to ask that question, that's a great acid test question. Because if, Dennis, you're the man and I'm the lady, and you say, Steve, or Stephanie in that case, Stephanie, you're moving way too fast. Or I say to you, Dennis, you're moving way too fast on me.
Yeah.
If my reaction to that is one of anger and being put off, then that is not a good sign. Yep. That is a dangerous sign, because that means they are that loaded spring. This is something they've done many times before. It's a learned behavior. They're a hammer. All the ladies out there are nails, or vice versa. They see everybody. They do a lot of serial dating potentially, and they do this behavior, whether they know it consciously or unconsciously, on a repeated serial basis. So I'm really glad you asked the question, because if I'm a lady or a man in that relationship and this starts happening, but let's say I really dig this lady, or vice versa, you really dig me, but you're concerned. What a great question to ask is, hey, Steve, Stephanie, Dennis, Denise, whatever the case may be. Hey, you know what? I like you. I enjoyed going to that movie, or I enjoyed meeting you that first night, but this is going a little too fast for me. Can we notch it down a little bit? And a love bomber will not be able to do that. They will, in fact, react with anger. So I'm really glad you asked that question. So what else do you think?
I would agree. I would agree with you for sure.
Yeah. What else do you think about, these behaviors, Dennis?
Well, I don't know. I think I want to ask that if someone, whether it be a guy or whether it be a girl out there, including us,
right?
What would be one of the classic kinds of, I don't want to call it a symptom, but some sort of a value that we could see out there that would let us know that we might be on the path to being love bombed, and this might be a love bomber we're with. So maybe an example, one or two examples.
I could give you, here would be a classic love bomber move. You go out on a first date, or we start communicating or whatever, but the contact is made in some sort of connection, even if it's not a deep connection, but the first contact is made. And then the following occurs, right? Flowers, chocolates, poetry, long letters, perfumed letters, whatever. Things that are just, it's like, whoa, this is way early. This is way over the top. Those would all be examples. Of course, the things that men might do might be a little different than what the ladies do. The men might be more on the side of, again, the gifts, the chocolates, the flowers. And there's nothing wrong with someone giving you flowers. I think it's a great gesture. It goes back to medieval times. It's a sign of beauty and all that. But again, it's the measure, it's the excess. And to me, those would be big signs. If you barely know a guy or a gal and they're talking about deep future stuff and dreams together, or this or that, things that are just inorganic, it's not natural. Your brain, your spidey sense is telling you something's wrong and you should listen to it. And I think you should call them on it in a gentle way. You don't want to evoke anger or whatever. But I think you should say time out and do that acid test question. Does that answer your question? Those would be some signs to me. I mean, I don't.
No, it does. It does.
Yeah.
But I think my last stab at a question regarding this would be, how do we tell the difference between a love bomber and someone who is just truly in touch with their feelings and is really enamored with the other person? And is there a stage in the relationship where it's now no longer an amber flag that's being thrown, or a red flag?
Yeah.
It's just something that you are now comfortable with. What
there's
point
mutual-
in the
now
relationship
you get
do
you're saying is
do you relax your guard and drop your
you're-
guard and just say, "Okay, baby, come on, bring it to me"?
Well, I think what we were describing is, if it's early on and it's a red flag, it was about timing and excess, right? It's too early and it's too much too early. And sometimes people will even say, and I've been guilty of this, sometimes people will even say, whoa, too much, and that doesn't mean I'm a love bomber. That just means, I'm excited about the relationship. But the next part of your question, I think, is the more interesting one, which is, when do you get to that stage in the relationship where maybe more is appropriate? Well, if we think of a relationship as a staircase, right, or some sort of continuum, a line, what there's going to be when that's more appropriate is when there's mutuality, when there's some history together. It's weeks or months, not days. And I think that's the key differentiator. And I think the key test, it's one of those things, it's hard to describe, but when you see it, or when you feel it. The key test is, does it feel like it's right from right field? Because we're describing very vague things. We're talking about the human brain. We're talking about human emotions. We are complex machines. There's not going to be a formula that says where in this staircase or where in this continuum is it appropriate. But the fact that you reacted that way, and it's like, whoa, cowboy, or whoa, cowgirl, that means they didn't read you. They are not mutually at the same place. They're probably ahead of you in that staircase. And the fact that they're so far off, not a little off, but they're so far off, that I think would be, I would call that a red flag. Because why are they doing that? And I think that was kind of the subject we were going to go to next, is now you got to ask yourself the why, which again, in police work, there's the who, what, where, when, why. The why is always the most fascinating, right? And do you want to segue into the why then at this point? I mean, should we? I'd like to ask you. I mean, I got a couple thoughts, but why do you think someone would?
I'd love to hear your thoughts. You're a little bit more in touch with, this love bombing thing than I think I am.
I don't know.
Not that I haven't seen it or experienced it. And I think one of the other questions I might want to ask on that is, someone who is, let's say they become sexually attracted to you. Okay. So would an overt sexual desire can that be construed as love bombing, or would that just be another subject for another show?
Well, I mean, I think that let's take the last one first. I think that love bombing is not synonymous with sexual attraction or even lust. I mean, to put it that way. In other words, I don't personally think, in my experience and the research I've done on this and what I've seen others go through, I don't think someone being highly sexually attracted to someone is necessarily linked with love bombing. To me, what's interesting and scary about love bombing is how damn psychological it is. It's really not about attraction to the other sex. It's scary and interesting. And as cops, I think it's kind of a human behavior study too. I think it's really not, just like rape isn't about sex, rape is about control and power. I think love bombing, it's about power. And I think love bombing in some ways is either about power or about, again, these repeated patterns that people follow. And so to answer your question, and this is my opinion, I'd love to hear from people out there, either in comments or emailing in. You could email to Dennis@lovebites.com and get questions to Dennis, just as a plug there. But we'd love to hear what you think about it. But in my opinion, don't misinterpret someone being highly sexually attracted to you necessarily is love bombing. Now, it could be that they're being inappropriate or they're moving too fast. That's another issue for another show. That would be great to talk about, actually, what is appropriate. And, how I come to things from a morality perspective and spirituality perspective might be different than how our audience does or how you do. So that would be a fascinating one to get into. I would be concerned if someone is overly sexualized early in a relationship. But I want to clearly delineate that from love bombing. To me, love bombing is it's psyops. It's psychological warfare. It is behavior. It's a learned behavior. At its core, it's kind of manipulative, right? I mean, that's what it smacks of, is manipulation. And again, the key test is call someone on the love bombing. If they get angry about it, they're a love bomber. There's your answer, right?
Yeah,
there.
when you call them out, right?
Yeah. And
so you think? I'm sorry, Steve.
No, go ahead.
Would you say that you would think that love bombing's purpose is to lasso the person and to get them into a false sense of this loving dome or whatever that now encompasses them? But what I'm trying to get at is like, what's the objective? What is a love bomber's objective by doing this to someone else?
I think that's a great question. I mean, from my experience and from what I've seen and people I've talked to, research I've done, there's two objectives of love bombing, and they don't have to be both. It could be either or. But I think one could be the one you just mentioned. They are just carpet bombing. They are clearing a path. They are coming in hot. They're coming in heavy, however you want to say it. They are really laying it on thick, and they really like this person, and they just don't have a good sense about what is welcome and normal and organic and staged and progressive, and it's a misread. So I think, in this case, the love bomber, it may not be malicious intention, but it's just they're using a bazooka when they needed a fly swatter. They should be buying a single red rose or maybe a card after that first date, but instead they're sending dozens of roses or sending roses every day, and they're going overboard. So I think one could be just that they've gone overboard. But the second answer to your question is why we're talking about on this show, to protect the men and ladies out there. The second reason is that darker psychological reason. And I this is the one that I think our audience should be afraid of, in my opinion. If someone is love bombing, you got to ask why. And why are they doing it? And I would say that it's been shown, this is a behavior that's out there. No one can tell me what the percentages are. But there is a percentage of people out there that will love bomb, not necessarily as the end goal. It's not just about the person, but to them it's a learned behavior, and they're addicted to the behavior, and it's like a drug. It's like a drug. And so they have done this before. It feels good to them. It's like someone, they did their first hit of cocaine or something. They loved it. They're going to keep coming back to it. These are the guys or gals that are going to be psychological in nature. They're doing it. It's the means, not the end. They are doing it because they like the feeling of it. They like what they're giving out. It's not just the act of hopefully getting with Mary Sue or Janie or whatever her name is, or Steve or Stephanie or Dennis or Denise. It's delivering it to them. To them is like doing a drug. And that's why asking the question, the key question of, hold time out, or can you slow it down there, Tex? If it's the latter, if it's the psychological, manipulative, potentially narcissistic behavior, you're going to get an angry response. And by the way, if they're really smart, an angry response, you need to read the face. You need to read the emotions. You might want to say that one in person, as long as you don't think they're dangerous, because what people will say in text or email is a lot harder to read. If you say something to me in person, Dennis, or via video chat, I'm going to have micro expressions. We're going to do a whole nother show, by the way, on body language, which is going to be fascinating, because from two cops' perspective, 99% of what we do is sociological and reading body language, reading people. But these are the sort of things I want to ask that question. If I want to ask someone, hey, can you slow it down a little bit, or you're moving too fast? I kind of want to do that one on purpose, as long as there's no danger to it, as long as we're comfortable being around that person, because I might say, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But then I might be reacting like this, and I might be hunching up, and my hands might start clenching up, and my eyebrows are starting to furrow. I'm starting to look like Sesame Street. I've got a unibrow,
Nostrils are flaring.
Nostrils are flaring. Ladies and gentlemen, these are things you should be reading. Your body is answering the question no matter what the text or the words are saying. So I'm glad you said that. I think in summary, there's two reasons. One could be more innocuous. They just really like you, but they're using inappropriate tools and weapons, and they're going overboard. Or the second could be, they could be manipulative, and it could be a very learned, repeated behavior, and it could be a red flag.
So, well, I'd just like to add one thing to everything that you just said, which is great stuff, and thank you so much, is that I think that something else you got to be on the lookout for isn't so much they want to accelerate this relationship and get you locked in. But again, the whys. Why would they want to do that?
Right.
I think another element there might be because you may be getting groomed for a scam.
Yeah.
Because, we all know there are one thing that I think so many people on dating sites have in common is that everybody's pretty much broken in some way. There's either been a broken heart or a crack in the heart, or
we've been loved it.
Bitten. Yep. That's right. Yeah. So I think based on that, we got to be suspicious of anybody that's love bombing someone, because it's moving too fast, but you're so lonely and you've got this deep void inside of you. Right. So anybody that comes along and just blows on you is almost going to get a positive reaction. So you got to kind of ask yourself too, do you think they may know that I am a financially stable person?
Right.
And how would they know that? Well, because we'll go back to your bio, and I'm sure somewhere in your bio you put in there that you had a great job and that you're financially stable, real financially stable, and you want the other person to be just as stable. So there's other elements to this.
They might be looking for a sugar daddy. Right?
That's exactly.
Sugar mama.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're not used to hearing that, oh, sweetie, you're just so beautiful today. Yeah. Look at how your eyes sparkle and that smile. It goes ear to ear. It's beautiful. And so somebody tells you that, and you're so wanting and needing. You're sitting duck. So that's, I think, another reason why maybe a skilled love bomber who's not only doing it from a psychological standpoint or aspect of their innate behavior, but maybe they've got an agenda, and maybe that agenda is to put their arms around you, make you their one and only, and your checkbook also.
Dynamite
so that's
point.
Another thing we gotta visit.
Again, especially as cops, I think your experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
And you used a very key term, grooming. We're going to talk more about all this in future shows and all that. But I love what you said, because we all know of scams that have happened. A lot of times they do happen later in life. Someone is older, they're divorced, a widow, widower, whatever. Yeah. And you used a key point. They're vulnerable. They got a hole in their heart. They're looking to fill it. And there's a lot of scammers out there, and it's very, very difficult for law enforcement, by the way, to deal with those people because of the art of manipulation and again, very smooth, Rico Suave type of love bombing. Absolutely could be one of those signs. I think it's really good that you hit that point on the scamming, because it's also tied to another show that we're going to do, which is on about what to put in your profile, what not to put in your profile. Just
another tidbit to throw out there. I had heard that on Netflix they're running some sort of I think it's a movie about a scammer person. And I don't know if the scammer person was with Tinder or
Tinder swindler is what you're talking about.
Was it Tinder? Okay.
Tinder swindler.
Yeah. So I had heard there's something out there. So that might really be something everybody wants to tune into, to get a look at the landscape and see what you may be walking into climbing onto a dating site. But that's why we're here, to help you and to help you negotiate and manage that journey at least the beginning of the journey, which is the profile and all your other things that you're going to be putting out there publicly. So another reason why they just got to hang with us, because we need to know these things too. We're learning them as we go along. We go forward.
This is all great stuff that's coming down the pipe. Tune in on our future shows, because we're going to be hitting a bunch of these points. And again, I'll say it every time. You are going to get raw, unfiltered, factual, real world stuff from us. We are not beholden to anybody. We just have experience. We've gotten love bitten. We've given some bites too. We have nothing but a motive of just sharing our experience to help people be successful in this space, but also we're cops, so also protect themselves,
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
It'll be good to hit those
that. Thanks for your research on this and your delivery. It was great. Thanks so much. And
thank you for having me.
We don't know what our next show is going to bring, but it's going to be something equally or something more devastating than the information you heard on our show today. So I'm sure it's going to be good. So tune into us next time. And if you have any questions, you have any mail that you want to send to us, maybe you wanted to talk to us, we do have a phone number provided. So feel free to reach out to us if you'd like.
Let me ask you. So where they're going to find that phone number is on your web domain. So it's www.lovebites.com. Or no, excuse me.
HowLoveBites.com. Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
HowLoveBites.com.
So on that site, site are these videos, links to these videos, the phone number. You can email in questions or comments on the show to Dennis at howlovebites.com. And certainly on YouTube, to our YouTube fans, definitely click like and click subscribe so that you'll get notified about these future shows, because I guarantee you it will not be boring. It will be interesting. It will be helpful.
Exactly. Thank you, Steve.
Well, thank you.
All right, buddy. All right, man. Have a great day, the rest of the day. And you guys out there do the same. And we're going to be looking for you to join us again. So thank you.
Love and peace.